The hull breach alarm screamed through every corridor of the Steadfast, a sound that made Engineer Sula's crystalline body vibrate with fear. She pressed her three-fingered hands against the navigation console, watching their options disappear one by one. The Ravager attack had torn through their shields like they were made of paper, and now half the ship was venting atmosphere into the cold void of space. Captain Drin slammed his forearms against the armrests of his command chair, his reptilian face twisted in frustration. 3 days running from those monsters, and this was where it ended. The nearest coalition outpost was 6 jumps away. They would be dead in 2 hours, maybe less. "Captain, there is one option," said Medic Haru, her insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. "But you will not like it." Drin turned his large eyes toward her. "At this point, I will take anything." Haru brought up a star chart on the main display. A small blue planet appeared, rotating slowly. "This system. It has facilities, atmosphere, gravity compatible with most of our crew." "That is the quarantine world," Drin said, his voice dropping low. "The humans, we are forbidden from making contact. We are also forbidden from dying stupidly when there is a perfectly good repair option available," Sula said, her voice chiming like broken glass. "I vote for living." The rest of the bridge crew murmured agreement. Drin looked at each of them in turn. His crew of 23 souls, all staring at him with hope in their eyes. He had never violated coalition law in his 30 years of service, but he had also never let his crew die when there was another choice. "Set course for Earth," he said quietly. "May the stars forgive us." The Steadfast limped into Earth's atmosphere like a wounded bird, trailing smoke and sparks. Sula managed to guide them toward a flat stretch of desert, their sensors picking up a cluster of structures that looked like some kind of facility. The landing was rough. Metal screamed. Systems failed. But they were down, and they were alive. Drin stood slowly, checking that all 4 of his arms still worked. Haru, check for casualties. Sula, damage report. Everyone else, prepare for first contact with a quarantined species. Remember your training. Do not show fear. Do not show aggression. We represent the coalition. What happened next was not in any training manual. Before they could even open the airlock, the sound of vehicles approached. Drin watched through the external cameras as a convoy of human trucks and machines surrounded the ship. Bipedal creatures in strange colored garments jumped out, many carrying tools and equipment. One of them, an older male with gray hair on his head and face, walked right up to the ship and banged on the hull with his fist. "You folks alive in there?" A voice crackled through their communication system. The translation software struggled for a moment, then settled into clarity. "This is Roy Patterson, Facility Director. You picked a good spot to crash. We got everything you need right here." Drin exchanged glances with his bridge crew. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be frightened, aggressive, confused, not offering help before even seeing what they looked like. He activated the external speaker. "We are the crew of the Coalition frigate Steadfast. We have sustained critical damage and require immediate repairs. We apologize for violating your airspace." There was a pause. Then the human laughed. It was a strange sound, but somehow it did not seem threatening. "Violating our airspace. Son, you can violate whatever you want if you need help. Pop that door open and let's see what we're working with. And somebody get these people some water. They just survived a crash landing, for crying out loud." The airlock opened with a hiss. Drin stepped out first, his 4 arms held carefully at his sides in a non-threatening posture. He was nearly 7 feet tall, covered in green scales, with a face that many species found terrifying. The human called Roy looked up at him, squinted in the bright sunlight, and extended one hand. "Roy Patterson, pleased to meet you, Captain." Drin stared at the offered hand. His database informed him this was a human greeting gesture. He carefully wrapped one of his hands around Roy's and moved it up and down as the files suggested. "Captain Drin, We are grateful for your assistance, though I must warn you that contact with us may bring consequences from the Coalition." Roy waved his other hand dismissively. "The Coalition can file a complaint. Right now, you got a ship that looks like it went through a meat grinder, and I got the best repair team in 3 states. Let's focus on what matters." More humans approached, and to Drin's amazement, they showed no fear at all. They walked right up to his crew members, introducing themselves, offering bottles of clear liquid that turned out to be water, and immediately beginning to inspect the damage to the Steadfast. A younger human, barely past adolescence by the look of him, approached Sula with a handheld scanning device. "Wow, you're beautiful, like a living crystal. I'm Danny. Mind if I scan your ship's hull composition? We need to know what we're working with for the repairs." Sula's body flickered with colors that indicated confusion and pleasure. "You find my form beautiful. Most species consider crystalline beings unsettling." Danny shrugged. "Most species sound boring. Come on, help me get these readings. Oh, and you want some coffee. It's hot, it's caffeinated, and it'll keep you going while we work." Within an hour, the human repair teams had set up powerful lights around the Steadfast and begun a detailed assessment of every damaged system. Roy stood with Drin, pointing at various parts of the ship and explaining what his teams could fix and how long it would take. "Your power core is stable, that's good. Hull breaches we can patch today. The real problem is your shield generator. That thing is fried 7 ways to Sunday. We can fix it, but it's going to take some time." Drin felt something he had not expected to feel: hope. "You can truly repair all of this?" Roy looked at him with an expression that seemed almost offended. "Captain, we put people on the moon with computers less powerful than your coffee maker. We sent probes to the edge of our solar system using math and hope. Your ship is damaged, sure, but it's not impossible. Nothing's impossible. It's just engineering." As the sun set over the Nevada desert, the human facility lit up like a small city. Work crews rotated in shifts, and the sound of repairs echoed through the night. Drin stood outside the ship, watching his crew interact with the humans, and realized something that would change everything. Earth was not a quarantine world because humans were dangerous. It was a quarantine world because the Coalition was afraid of what humans could do. Sula had seen many engineering approaches in her 40 years traveling the galaxy, but she had never seen anything like this. The human technicians swarmed over the Steadfast like organized chaos, each one seeming to know exactly what to do without anyone giving direct orders. They cut away damaged panels, welded new supports, and ran diagnostic tests with equipment that looked primitive but worked with surprising precision. "How do you coordinate without a central command structure?" she asked Danny, who was currently lying on his back underneath a damaged thruster assembly. Danny slid out from under the thruster, his face smeared with grease. "We talk to each other. Roy tells us what needs doing and we figure out how to do it. Works pretty well, actually." He held up a twisted piece of metal that had once been part of the shield emitter. "This alloy is incredible. What's it made of?" Sula's body shimmered with pride. "Titanium carbide composite with trace elements of crystallized hydrogen. Standard Coalition military grade. It can withstand temperatures up to 4,000 degrees and impact forces that would destroy lesser materials." Danny whistled low, and something still tore through it like tissue paper. "What the hell are these Ravagers made of?" "Nightmares and hate," Sula said quietly. "They do not communicate, they do not negotiate. They simply consume everything in their path." Danny stood up, wiping his hands on his pants. "Sounds like they need a serious attitude adjustment. Come on, I want to show you something." He led her across the facility to a large warehouse building. Inside, human engineers had set up a complete fabrication workshop. Machines hummed and sparked, creating components from raw materials. But what caught Sula's attention was the display screen showing a 3-dimensional model of the Steadfast. We scanned your whole ship, Danny explained. Every system, every component. And we've been making some notes. A woman approached them carrying a tablet computer. She had dark skin and sharp eyes that reminded Sula of a predator. I'm Dr. Amelia Grant, Material Science. Your shield system is impressive, but it's designed for energy weapons, not kinetic impacts. The Ravagers use both, right? Sula nodded. Their primary weapons fire superheated plasma, but they also use physical projectiles made of compressed matter. Our shields stop the plasma, but the projectiles penetrate. Amelia smiled. What if we layered your energy shields with a magnetic deflection field? We use something similar on our experimental spacecraft to deflect micrometeorites. It won't stop everything, but it'll slow down kinetic projectiles enough for your main shields to absorb the impact. That would require extensive modifications to our shield generator, Sula said, and components we do not have. We can make them, Amelia said simply. Give us 2 days. Sula felt her body flash with colors indicating disbelief. 2 days? That would take a coalition shipyard 2 months. Danny laughed. Yeah, but coalition shipyards probably follow regulations and safety procedures. We just make stuff work. While Sula discussed technical specifications with the human engineers, Captain Drin found himself in Roy's office, drinking something the humans called coffee. It was bitter and strong and made his heart beat faster, but there was something appealing about it. Roy had spread out several data pads on his desk, showing schematics and repair schedules. Your hull patches will be done by tomorrow morning. The shield generator upgrade needs another 48 hours. We're also replacing your damaged maneuvering thrusters with improved models. Should give you about 20% better response time. Drin set down his coffee cup carefully. Roy, why are you doing this? We are strangers, aliens. Your world is supposed to be isolated from galactic contact. Roy leaned back in his chair, his weathered face thoughtful. You know what I did before running this facility? I was a Navy mechanic, worked on carriers, submarines, destroyers. Saw a lot of good people die because their equipment failed at the wrong moment. He pointed at the window where the Steadfast was visible in the distance. That ship out there is somebody's life. Your crew depends on it. When someone shows up needing help, you don't ask permission from bureaucrats. You help. Simple as that. The Coalition may punish you for this contact, Drin warned. Let them try, Roy said with a grin. They'll find out real quick that humans don't take kindly to being told who we can and can't help. That night, Medic Haru was treating one of her crew members in the Steadfast medical bay when a human woman entered carrying a metal case. She had gray hair tied back and wore a white coat over her clothing. I'm Dr. Lisa Park, trauma surgeon. Roy mentioned you had some injured crew. Mind if I take a look? Haru's mandibles clicked with uncertainty. Human medicine may not be compatible with our biology. Lisa opened her case, revealing medical scanners and instruments. That's why I brought these. They're designed for veterinary work, different species, different biological systems. Figure the principle is the same. I won't touch anyone without your permission, but maybe we can compare notes. What followed was 3 hours of intensive medical discussion. Haru was amazed to discover that despite humans having only 1 heart, 2 lungs, and a relatively simple circulatory system, they had developed medical techniques that were innovative and effective. Lisa shared information about trauma treatment, infection control, and surgical procedures that Haru had never considered. You treat your wounded with such care, Haru observed. The Coalition Medical Corps is efficient but cold. Lisa smiled sadly. Every life matters. That's what my teachers taught me. Doesn't matter if you're human, alien, or something we've never seen before. If you're hurt, we help. By the second day, the transformation of the Steadfast was remarkable. The hull gleamed with new patches. The engines hummed with improved efficiency. and the shield generator had been completely rebuilt with human innovations integrated into coalition technology. Sula stood with Danny and Amelia, running final tests on the new defensive systems. The results made her body glow with colors of pure joy. "This is impossible," she said. "Shield efficiency is up 42%. Power consumption is down 18%. The magnetic deflection layer is working perfectly." "Told you we could do it," Danny said proudly. Amelia looked at the data with satisfaction. "This is just the beginning. Sula, what if I told you that we could improve your weapon systems too?" Before Sula could answer, alarms blared across the facility. Roy's voice came over the communication system, urgent and hard. "All crew to stations. We just picked up a coalition emergency broadcast. The Ravager swarm has broken through the outer defense perimeter. They're heading for the core worlds." Captain Drin rushed to the communications center, his 4 arms moving frantically over the controls. The message was clear and terrifying. The Ravagers were advancing faster than anyone had predicted. Millions of lives were in danger. Roy stood beside him, arms crossed. "How long until they reach Coalition space?" 3 weeks, Drin said, his voice hollow. "Maybe less." Roy nodded slowly. "Then we better finish these upgrades quick. And Captain, I think it's time we had a conversation about what else Earth can offer." Dren looked at the human, confused. "What do you mean?" Roy's smile was sharp and dangerous. "I mean that repairs are just the start. If you're going to war, you're going to need more than a patched-up frigate. You're going to need weapons, tactics, and allies who know how to fight." "Earth is isolated," Drin protested. "You have no fleet, no military presence in space." Roy laughed, a sound without humor. "That's what we let everyone believe. Come with me, Captain. There's something you need to see." Roy drove them in a vehicle humans called a jeep, racing across the desert as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Captain Drin held onto the roll bar with 2 of his arms, his scales turning pale with what his species experienced as motion sickness. Sula sat in the back, her crystalline body refracting the sunlight into rainbow patterns. They arrived at what looked like a mountain, but Roy drove straight toward a concealed entrance. Heavy doors opened automatically, and they descended into a massive underground complex that stretched far beyond what the surface suggested. "Welcome to Site 7, Roy said as they parked. "One of 12 facilities like this scattered around the planet." The corridor opened into an enormous hangar carved from solid rock. Drin stopped walking, all 4 of his arms dropping to his sides in shock. Rows of spacecraft filled the space, each one clearly designed for combat. They were not elegant like coalition vessels, but they had a brutal efficiency that spoke of serious purpose. "You said Earth had no fleet," Drin whispered. "I said we let everyone believe that," Roy corrected. 50 years ago, we picked up coalition transmissions, learned about the galaxy, figured out pretty quick that we weren't alone and that space wasn't exactly peaceful, so we started building, quietly." A woman in military uniform approached them, her posture radiating authority. She had steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen combat. "Captain Drin, I'm General Patricia Howard, Earth Defense Command. Roy tells me you're in a fight with something called the Ravager Swarm." Drin managed to close his mouth. "General Howard, I must protest. The Coalition has strict regulations about military development by uncontacted species." Patricia's smile was cold. "The Coalition also has regulations about leaving member species to die when help is available. We've been monitoring your communications. Your people are in trouble and we can help. The question is whether you're too proud to accept it." She gestured toward a large display screen on the wall. Combat footage appeared, showing the Steadfast's desperate battle with the Ravager vessels. Patricia watched in silence, her expression growing darker with each passing moment. "Your defensive formations are outdated by about 200 years, she said bluntly. Your ships cluster together, making them easy targets. Your weapons fire in predictable patterns, and your tactical response to enemy maneuvers is slow and reactive. Drin felt his scales flush with anger. We have fought successfully for decades using these tactics. Against what? Patricia challenged. Other coalition species using the same outdated playbook. These Ravagers aren't playing by your rules. They're adapting, evolving, overwhelming you with speed and violence. You need to change how you fight. She pulled up another display, showing human combat simulations. Ships moved in loose formations, breaking apart and reforming unpredictably. Weapons fire came from unexpected angles. Small fighter craft harassed larger vessels while capital ships delivered devastating strikes from long range. This is how we fight, Patricia said. Fluid, aggressive, always adapting. We studied every conflict in human history and applied those lessons to space combat. We've been preparing for a war we didn't know would come, but now it's here. Sula stepped forward, her body shimmering with curiosity. You have tested these tactics. Simulations, war games, training exercises, Patricia confirmed. Thousands of hours. Our pilots train against AI opponents programmed to fight unpredictably. Our fleet commanders run scenarios where they're outnumbered and outgunned. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. A young officer approached, carrying a data pad. General, the tactical review is complete. Recommend immediate implementation of Formation Delta and Weapons Package 7. Patricia nodded. Captain Drin, I want to show you something specific. This is footage from your battle, analyzed by our combat AI. The display showed the moment when the Ravagers had torn through the steadfast shields. The AI highlighted specific weaknesses in the ship's defensive posture, predicted the enemy's attack vectors, and suggested countermeasures that could have prevented the damage. Your ship broadcast its intentions through electromagnetic emissions, Patricia explained. Your shield configuration, your weapons charging cycles, even your maneuvering thruster patterns. The Ravagers read all of that and exploited it. They're not stupid. They're learning from every encounter. Drin felt something he had not experienced in years, fear mixed with hope. You truly believe you can help us defeat them? Roy put a hand on the captain's shoulder. We know we can, but there's something you need to understand about humans. We don't do anything halfway. If we're going to help you, we're going all in. Patricia activated another display, showing a star map of coalition space. Red markers indicated Ravager positions, advancing like a spreading infection. Blue markers showed coalition forces, scattered and reactive. Your coalition is fighting a defensive war, she said. Retreating, regrouping, trying to hold territory. That's a losing strategy against an enemy that reproduces faster than you can kill them. You need to go on the offensive, hit their supply lines, destroy their breeding grounds, make them afraid of you. The coalition does not have the resources for such aggressive action, Drin protested. No, Patricia agreed, but we do. She pulled up another map, this one showing Earth's solar system. Green markers appeared, indicating hidden bases on moons, asteroids, and deep space platforms. Ships were scattered throughout the system, concealed and waiting. 200 combat vessels, she said quietly. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and support ships. 50,000 trained personnel. Weapons that your coalition has never seen. We've been building this fleet for 30 years, waiting for the day when we might need it. Why? Drin asked. Why prepare for a war you did not know would come? Danny, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Because humans have a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We hoped the galaxy would be peaceful. We prepared in case it wasn't. Patricia walked to a window overlooking the hangar. The coalition made a mistake when they quarantined us. They thought they were protecting the galaxy from humanity, but what they really did was give us time to get ready, time to build, time to plan, and now that time is going to save your people. She turned back to Drin. Here's what I'm offering. We'll send a battle group with you to the Coalition rally point. 50 ships, our best crews, and enough firepower to make the Ravagers think twice. In exchange, you speak to your Coalition command. You tell them that Earth is ready for contact, that we're ready to join the fight, that we're ready to be part of something bigger. Drin looked at Roy, then at Sula, then back at Patricia. His people were dying. The Ravagers were advancing. The Coalition was losing. And here stood a species that should have been afraid but instead was offering alliance. I will speak to Coalition Command, he said slowly. But I cannot guarantee they will accept your help. There are regulations, procedures, protocols. Patricia smiled. Screw the protocols. People are dying. We can help. Everything else is just paperwork. Roy laughed, spoken like a true human. Come on, Captain. Let's get you and your crew properly equipped. If you're going back into that fight, you're going in with every advantage we can give you. As they left the hangar, Drin looked back at the rows of human warships waiting in the darkness. The Coalition had thought they were protecting the galaxy from humanity. They had been protecting humanity from the galaxy. That protection was about to end. 3 days passed in a blur of activity that left the crew of the Steadfast exhausted and amazed in equal measure. The ship no longer looked like the battered frigate that had crashed in the Nevada desert. Human engineers had done more than repair it. They had transformed it. Sula walked through the engine room with Danny, running her crystalline fingers over new components that hummed with power. The reactor core now operated at 30% higher efficiency, thanks to human cooling systems. The hyperdrive had been recalibrated using mathematical formulas that Coalition engineers swore were impossible but somehow worked perfectly. I still do not understand how you made these improvements, she said, her body glowing with confused admiration. The Coalition has been building ships for 3,000 years. You have been in space for barely a century. Danny grinned as he checked a power coupling. That's exactly why we can improve them. We don't know what's supposed to be impossible, so we just try stuff until it works. Fresh eyes, fresh ideas. In the weapons bay, Medic Haru stood with Dr. Lisa Park, watching as human technicians installed new defensive systems. Automated medical pods lined one wall, capable of treating multiple species simultaneously. Trauma kits had been updated with human medical supplies and techniques. Your people think of everything, Haru clicked softly. Even in preparing for war, you prepare to save lives. Lisa adjusted a medical scanner. War is ugly and people get hurt. Best we can do is be ready to patch them back together. I'm sending 2 of my trauma specialists with your ship. They'll work under your command, but they can handle injuries your equipment might not be designed for. You would send your own people into danger for strangers, Haru asked. You're not strangers anymore, Lisa said simply. You're friends, and we don't let friends go into battle alone. On the bridge, Captain Drin sat in his command chair, watching as human technicians made final adjustments to the control systems. The main display now showed tactical information with a clarity and detail that Coalition sensors could never achieve. Threat analysis, target prediction, damage assessment, all processed in real time by computing systems that made Coalition technology look primitive. Roy climbed up to the bridge, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. He handed one to Drin, who had developed a serious appreciation for the bitter human beverage over the past few days. Your ship is ready, Roy said, settling into the navigator's station. Better than new, actually. Faster, tougher, meaner. Those Ravagers hit you again, they're going to be in for a nasty surprise. You are coming with us, Drin asked, surprised. Someone needs to make sure all these new systems keep working, Roy said. Besides, I've been fixing ships in the desert for 20 years. Time for a change of scenery. Danny's coming too. Kid's too stubborn to stay behind. As if summoned by his name, Danny appeared on the bridge, wearing a human flight suit modified to fit in with Coalition uniforms. All systems green, Captain. We're ready to launch whenever you give the word. Drin stood, all four arms spreading in a gesture of gratitude. I do not know how to properly thank you for what your people have done. Thank us by surviving, Roy said, and by telling your coalition that Earth is ready to talk. We've been waiting a long time for that conversation. The Steadfast lifted off from the Nevada facility with a grace it had never possessed before. The new engines responded instantly to every command. The hull, reinforced with human alloys, could withstand impacts that would have crippled the old design, and hidden throughout the ship were weapons that would make any Ravager vessel regret attacking. But the Steadfast was not alone. 50 human warships rose from hidden bases across Earth and the solar system. They formed up in loose formations that constantly shifted and changed, making them difficult to target or predict. The flagship, a massive carrier called the Indomitable, led the formation with Admiral James Akoy commanding from its bridge. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, following the Steadfast toward the Coalition rally point at the Threshold station. The journey took 6 days, and during that time, Roy and Danny worked with the Steadfast crew to integrate human and Coalition tactics. Your weapons are powerful, Roy explained during a training session, but you fire them predictably. The Ravagers have learned to dodge. We need to make them guess wrong. He demonstrated on the tactical display, showing how staggered firing patterns and feint attacks could confuse enemy sensors. Hit them where they think you won't. Make them commit to a defense, then attack from a different angle. Keep them off balance. Sula absorbed every lesson, her crystalline mind cataloging strategies that the Coalition had never considered. This is how humans fight, with deception and unpredictability. This is how humans survive, Roy corrected. We're not the biggest or the strongest, so we got smart. Same principle applies whether you're fighting other humans or alien monsters. When the fleet emerged from hyperspace near Threshold Station, the Coalition forces already gathered there fell silent. Sensors detected the human ships, and confusion spread through every Coalition vessel in the system. Admiral Tyrex, commander of the Coalition Defense Fleet, broadcast on all frequencies. His avian features were visible on every screen, feathers ruffled with agitation. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves immediately. You have entered a restricted military zone. Admiral Akoy responded, his deep voice calm and confident. This is Admiral James Akoy of the Earth Defense Fleet. We're here to help. Drin watched from the Steadfast as Coalition Command tried to process what was happening. Humans were not supposed to have a fleet. Earth was quarantined. This violated a dozen regulations, but the Ravagers were coming, and regulations seemed suddenly unimportant. Coalition Command, this is Captain Drin of the Steadfast, he broadcast. I am requesting immediate emergency audience. The humans have critical tactical information regarding the Ravager threat, and they offer military alliance. There was a long pause. Then Admiral Tyrex responded, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Captain Drin, you have violated quarantine protocols. You will submit to immediate investigation. He'll do nothing of the sort, Patricia Howard's voice cut in. She had transferred to the Indomitable for this meeting. Admiral Tyrex, my name is General Patricia Howard. While you waste time arguing about regulations, the Ravagers are advancing. We have analyzed their tactics, identified their weaknesses, and developed countermeasures. You can accept our help and maybe save a few million lives, or you can cling to your protocols and watch your people die. Your choice. The communication channel crackled with tension. Drin could imagine the emergency meetings happening aboard the Coalition command ship, officers arguing about procedure while their worlds burned. Finally, Admiral Tyrex spoke again. General Howard, your presence here creates significant legal complications. However, I am not so proud as to reject assistance when it is offered. You may approach Threshold Station under escort. We will discuss terms. Roy chuckled from his station on the steadfast bridge. He makes it sound like he's doing us a favor. He is trying to save face, Drin explained. The Coalition does not adapt quickly to change. They better learn, Danny said, pointing at the long-range sensors, because change is coming whether they like it or not. The display showed a massive formation of Ravager vessels entering the system, days ahead of schedule. Hundreds of enemy ships, all broadcasting the same message: hunger, destruction, consumption. The battle for Threshold Station was about to begin, and this time, humanity would show the galaxy what it meant to fight back. Alarms shrieked across every ship in the system as the Ravager fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a swarm of locusts. Their vessels were biological nightmares, ships grown rather than built, pulsing with organic weapons and covered in armor that looked like chitinous plates. They moved with frightening coordination, hundreds of ships acting as a single predator. Admiral Tyrks broadcast on the Coalition command frequency, his voice strained. All ships, defensive formation Gamma, protect Threshold Station at all costs. The Coalition vessels moved into position, clustering around the massive space station in overlapping fields of fire. It was the standard defensive doctrine, designed to create maximum firepower concentration. It was also exactly what the Ravagers expected. Patricia Howard watched from the indomitable bridge, her expression grim. They're bunching up again. Admiral Okoye deploy fighter wings Alpha through Delta. Cruiser group flanking position 7. Destroyers harassment pattern. Acknowledged, Okoye said calmly. All ships, you have your assignments. Show them what Earth brings to the fight. The human fleet scattered like seeds in the wind. Fighter craft launched from carriers, small and fast, darting between larger vessels. Cruisers broke into 3-ship wolf packs, circling the battlefield. Destroyers activated stealth systems and disappeared from sensors, ghosts waiting to strike. The Ravagers hesitated, their coordinated advance faltering. This was not how prey behaved. This was not the defensive clustering they had learned to exploit. On the Steadfast, Captain Drin watched the human tactics unfold with growing amazement. Roy stood beside him, pointing at the tactical display. See how our fighters are moving. They're not trying to win dogfights. They're painting targets, drawing fire, making the Ravagers commit resources, and while they're distracted. 3 human destroyers materialized behind the Ravager formation, their weapons already firing. Railguns launched solid projectiles at relativistic speeds, punching through organic armor like hammers through paper. Missile volleys followed, each warhead programmed with targeting data from the fighter wings. A dozen Ravager vessels exploded in the first salvo. Impossible, breathed Sula from the engineering station. They destroyed more ships in one attack than a full Coalition battle group. Surprise and violence, Danny explained, his fingers flying over the weapon's console. Don't give them time to react. Hit hard, hit fast, and keep moving. The Ravagers adapted quickly, splitting their formation to counter the human tactics. But they split predictably, following attack patterns they had learned from fighting the Coalition. Patricia had anticipated this. Cruiser group, execute feint Alpha, she ordered. Human cruisers raced toward the left flank of the Ravager formation, weapons charging. The enemy vessels moved to intercept, biomechanical weapons glowing with deadly energy. At the last moment the cruisers scattered, and the space they had occupied filled with Coalition fire. Admiral Tyrks had been watching, learning. His ships focused their weapons on the Ravagers that the human feint had exposed, destroying another wave of enemy vessels. All Coalition forces, Tyrks broadcast, his voice stronger now, adopt fluid formation pattern. Follow the human lead and target enemy weak points. The battle became a deadly dance. Humans darted and struck. Coalition forces followed up with heavy firepower. The Ravagers tried to adapt but found themselves always one step behind, fighting an enemy that refused to behave predictably. On the Steadfast, Drin finally gave the order his crew had been waiting for. All weapons, engage at will, show them what human upgrades can do. The ship's new weapon systems came online with an efficiency that made the old Coalition technology look ancient. Enhanced targeting computers locked onto 3 Ravager vessels simultaneously. The shields that had barely survived the last battle now deflected incoming fire with ease, the magnetic deflection layers working exactly as Amelia had promised. Sula routed power through the improved reactor, sending massive energy surges to the weapons arrays. The Steadfast fired, and 3 Ravager ships died in rapid succession. "Direct hits," Danny reported, his voice filled with excitement. All 3 targets destroyed, shields holding at 94%. "These upgrades are incredible." But the Ravagers were not defeated yet. Their main battle group pushed forward, accepting losses to reach their primary target, Threshold Station. If they could destroy the station, the Coalition supply lines would collapse. Millions would die. Patricia saw the threat developing. "Admiral Akoy, they're going for the station. We need to stop them now." "Understood," Akoy replied. He broadcast on the fleet-wide channel, his voice steady as iron. "All ships, priority target is the Ravager command cluster. Ignore everything else. We end this now." The human fleet reformed with breathtaking speed, abandoning individual targets to focus on the massive Ravager vessels at the center of the enemy formation. These were the bioships that controlled the swarm, the queens directing the hive. Coalition forces saw what the humans were doing and joined the assault. For the first time in the battle, both fleets worked in perfect coordination. Human speed and Coalition firepower combined into a devastating hammer. Roy watched the tactical display, his weathered face intense. "Captain Drin, we need to get in close. Those command ships have weak points in their organic armor, right where the weapon pods connect to the main body." "How do you know this?" Drin asked. "Because everything biological has weak points," Roy said. "Joints, connections, places where different parts meet. Same principle as fighting a crab. You go for the soft spots." The Steadfast raced forward, human engines pushing the ship faster than Coalition technology should allow. They wove through debris and weapons fire, closing the distance to the nearest command ship. It was massive, 10 times the size of the Steadfast, covered in pulsing biomechanical weapons. "Target their weapon pod connections," Drin ordered. "All power to forward shields." The ship shuddered as Ravager fire hammered against the shields, but the human upgrades held. Sula rerouted every spare bit of power to the weapons systems, and the Steadfast fired at point-blank range. The effect was devastating. The Ravager command ship's armor cracked at the connection points, exposing vulnerable internal systems. Secondary explosions rippled through the biological vessel as its own weapon pods turned against it. "Target destroyed," Danny reported, "and I think the other Ravagers are confused." He was right. Across the battlefield, Ravager vessels faltered as one of their command ships died. The perfect coordination broke down into chaos. Ships collided with each other. Weapons fired in random directions. The hive mind was wounded. Patricia seized the moment. "All forces full assault, don't give them time to recover." What followed was not a battle but an execution. Human and Coalition forces tore through the disorganized Ravager fleet, destroying ship after ship. The enemy tried to retreat, but human destroyers had positioned themselves on the escape routes. There would be no survivors to warn the main Ravager force about Earth's military capability. When the last Ravager vessel exploded, silence fell across the communication channels. Coalition crews stared at their sensors in disbelief. They had won. Not just survived, but won decisively. Admiral Tyrks was the first to speak. "General Howard, Admiral Akoy, on behalf of the Coalition, I offer our deepest gratitude. Your tactics and courage saved countless lives today. We just helped out some new friends, Akoy replied. That's what neighbors do. Roy leaned back in his chair, taking a long drink of coffee. Well, Captain, I think the Coalition knows we exist now. No going back to quarantine after this. Drin looked at the human, his scales rippling with colors indicating deep satisfaction. I do not think the galaxy will ever be the same. Good, Danny said with a grin. Same was boring anyway. The aftermath of the battle was organized chaos. Coalition medical ships moved among the damaged vessels, treating wounded and recovering survivors. Human engineers swarmed over damaged systems, applying their particular brand of fix-it-until-it-works methodology. And in the command center of Threshold Station, representatives from both fleets gathered for the meeting that would change galactic history. Admiral Tyark stood at the head of the conference table, his feathers smoothed down now that the immediate crisis had passed. Around him sat coalition captains from a dozen different species, all staring at the human delegation with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. General Patricia Howard sat across from Tyarks, flanked by Admiral Akoy and several other Earth military commanders. Captain Drin was there too, with Roy and Danny standing behind him like honored guests. Let us address the obvious issue first, Tyark said, his translator converting his clicking speech into standard coalition language. Earth was designated as a quarantine world for specific reasons. Your presence here, with a military fleet no less, violates fundamental coalition law. Patricia smiled, but there was steel in her eyes. With respect, Admiral, those laws were made about us without consulting us. We didn't ask to be isolated. We didn't agree to stay out of galactic affairs. You made that choice for us, and frankly, we're done accepting it. A coalition captain, a being made of shifting liquid contained in a transparent suit, spoke up. Your species was deemed too aggressive, too warlike. The decision was made for the safety of the galaxy. And yet, Akoy said calmly, we're the ones who just saved your station and your people. If we're so dangerous, why are you still alive? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Roy stepped forward, his work-worn hands resting on the back of Drin's chair. Look, I'm just a mechanic. I fix things. But I know this much. You folks have been fighting the Ravagers for years and losing ground. We show up, fight one battle, and win decisively. Maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't that humans are too dangerous. Maybe the problem is that the galaxy needs a little bit of dangerous right now. Sula had been standing quietly in the corner, her crystalline body reflecting the station's lights. Now she spoke, her voice chiming like bells. I have worked alongside human engineers for the past week. I have watched them solve problems that coalition experts said were impossible. I have seen them treat injured aliens with the same care they show their own kind. If this is what dangerous looks like, then perhaps we need more of it. Medic Haru clicked her agreement. The human medical personnel saved 3 of my crew who would have died with coalition treatment alone. They asked nothing in return. They simply helped because help was needed. Admiral Tyarks looked around the table, seeing the expressions on his fellow coalition officers' faces. They had seen the battle. They knew what human tactics had accomplished. More importantly, they knew the Ravager threat was far from over. General Howard, he said carefully, what exactly are you proposing? Patricia leaned forward. Full recognition of Earth as an independent sovereign world with immediate application for coalition membership, mutual defense pact, technology sharing agreements, and complete freedom for human ships to operate in coalition space without restriction. That is a considerable demand, Tyarks observed. It's a fair trade, Patricia countered. We're offering military alliance, tactical expertise, and technologies your scientists will spend decades trying to understand. We're offering friendship to species who need friends right now. And yes, we're demanding to be treated as equals, not children locked in a room for their own protection. The coalition officers exchanged glances, communicating in the subtle ways that different species had developed over centuries of cooperation. Finally, Tyark spoke again. The final decision must come from Coalition Central Command, but I will recommend acceptance of your terms. The galaxy is changing, General Howard. Perhaps it is time our laws changed with it. Danny nudged Roy, whispering, "Did we just join the galactic community?" "Looks like it," Roy whispered back. "Better late than never." The formal negotiations continued for hours, working through details and establishing protocols. But the important decision had been made. Earth was no longer quarantined. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they had arrived with a bang. 3 weeks later, construction crews from Earth and the Coalition worked side by side in orbit around Mars, building the first joint human coalition shipyard. The facility would be enormous, capable of producing warships that combine the best of both cultures' technologies. Captain Drin stood on the observation deck of Threshold Station, watching the construction through the massive windows. The Steadfast was docked nearby, its crew enjoying well-deserved shore leave after being officially commended for their role in making first contact. Roy joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Drin, who accepted it gratefully. "Your crew is heading back to active duty next week," Roy said. "Yes," Drin confirmed. "The Ravagers still pose a threat. There will be more battles." "But this time you won't be fighting alone," Roy pointed out. 50 human ships are being assigned to the Coalition Defense Fleet. More will follow as we build them, and we're training your people in our tactics." Drin took a sip of coffee, savoring the bitter warmth. "You know, when we crashed in your desert, I thought we were doomed. The ship was destroyed, our crew was injured, and we had violated the most serious law in Coalition history. Instead, we found allies who fixed our ship, saved our lives, and changed the entire galaxy." "That's what friends do," Roy said simply. Danny appeared, practically bouncing with excitement. "Captain, you have to see this. Sula and I just finished the prototype for the new shield system. It combines her crystalline technology with our magnetic fields and something called quantum foam that neither of us really understands but works anyway. It's going to revolutionize defense systems across the entire galaxy." Behind him, Sula's body glowed with colors that indicated pride and joy. "We are calling it the Steadfast Shield, in honor of the ship that brought our people together." Drin felt warmth spread through his chest, an emotion his species rarely experienced. "I am honored." More crew members appeared, both human and alien, talking excitedly about projects and plans. Dr. Lisa Park was teaching Horu advanced surgical techniques. Amelia was working with Coalition scientists on new alloy formulas. Everywhere Drin looked, he saw cooperation, friendship, and hope. Admiral Akoi's voice came over the station-wide communication system. "Attention, all personnel. Long-range sensors have detected a Ravager scouting force heading toward the Threshold system. ETA 72 hours. This is not a drill. All combat crews report to your stations. Let's show them what happens when they mess with our neighborhood." Roy drained his coffee cup and set it down with a grin. "Well, that was a nice vacation. Time to get back to work." Drin stood, all 4 of his arms spreading in a gesture that humans had taught him meant determination. "Indeed. Let us remind the Ravagers why they should fear the alliance of Earth and the Coalition." As they walked toward the docking bay, Danny looked up at the stars visible through the station windows. "You know what's funny? A month ago, Earth was alone in the universe. Now we've got alien friends, a galactic war to fight, and unlimited supplies of exotic technology to tinker with. Best career move I ever made, crashing into our repair facility." "We came to Earth for repairs," Drin said thoughtfully. "We left with upgrades, coffee, and a war fleet. It seems like a fair trade." Roy laughed. "Son, you have no idea. This is just the beginning. Wait until you see what else humans can do when we really get started." The crew of the Steadfast headed back to their ship, ready for the next battle. Behind them, the first human coalition shipyard continued to grow, a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Earth had joined the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same.